Welcome to Elements of Music. I'm Ben Hjertmann. I'm a composer and teacher. This is a course I've designed myself and I'm bringing to you. This course is generally geared toward folks who have not studied music deeply before, so it's an introductory course, and it tries to cover music from many different angles. We'll have 10 different modules which cover rhythm and harmony and melody and form, and we'll try to attune our ears to the different parts and parameters of music. So, crack a pamplemousse and let's get started. So for this first lesson, we're going to be thinking about what music is. And what we're going to do is listen to 10 musical examples and all kind of think about individually, does this sound like music to me? But we all know what music is, right? We don't need to look it up in a dictionary. We don't need to debate what counts. But the question might be more specifically, where's the boundary of music for you? Is it when a certain thing is present, then that makes it music? Or is it once some other element is present, then it's not music anymore? Or maybe it just needs to be tuneful or less noisy. And there's not a specific answer that I'm hoping that you will get from this, but more for you to investigate what exactly you think music is and where the line is for you. And it's okay if that line is different than mine. It's okay if your line changes. But I felt like a fun way to start off our class about music is just to listen to examples and think about how we feel about this question. Is this music? Let's go. Number 1. Okay, so number 1 was a piece of music composed by Merzbow, Merzbow, who's a well-known Japanese noise music artist. So this was intended to be created as music. In fact, all of the examples we're going to listen to are said to be music by those who created them. I'm going to pause number 2 there. So that is actually a piece called Don't Dream, which I wrote and performed at Appalachian State. What you hear there is me singing with some live electronic processing, plus the audience was asked to sing a loud tone. So I'm going to pause this example here. This is a pretty interesting example. It is called Jimi Hendrix, and it's a piece of music by Christian Marclay. If you look up Christian Marclay, his name is spelled Marclay. He's an artist that creates new works of music by primarily through cutting up records and then making a physical collage of different records. So if you look at his work, you'll see a record with multiple colors, kind of like a puzzle that's put together. He's taken multiple pieces of music or one piece of music and chopped it all up into different pieces, rearranged it, and then reattached it as a physical object and then plays it on a record player. Okay, so number 4 was a piece of music by John Cage, who's a rather famous composer who was active in writing music between the 1930s and the 1990s when he passed away. John Cage, this piece is called Root of an Unfocus. It's a piece for prepared piano, which means that and he was the first to do this largely, he went inside the piano and placed different objects and made changes to the way the piano works. So he's still playing a regular piano. It's a grand piano, but it has screws and rubber bands and things that change the sounds of the strings when he hits them. So I think this is an interesting example because it certainly has some rhythm. It does have some pitch. The sounds are rather strange, and it's repetitive. So you can think about whether these elements fit your definition of music. John Cage is also famous in asking this question of what music is, or what is music. And so you will come across a piece of his called 4:33, 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which is a piece of music that is written with no playing of the piano. Someone comes out and sits at the piano for 4 minutes and 33 seconds and does not play, and the silence and resting there is considered music. Number 5 that we just heard is called Ngoma Lungundu. This is movement 3. It's by Nick Chase. This is interesting. It's sort of animal-like in sound. There's a picture of a fly on the cover of the album. Rather rhythmic, but kind of unpredictable. I would call it experimental. And these are either electronically generated sounds or electronically altered sounds. It sounds very electronic to me. But it's not dance music. It's something more experimental within that realm. Okay, here's number 6. Number 6 is Cult of Rogonia. This is called Sanfrino's The Quiet Helm. This involves some vocals that are being manipulated with some kind of effect, some guitar and some drums. Definitely counts as music in my book, and it's followable, but I don't think it's a composition or an ordered, structured piece of music. Okay, so number 7 is by Hildegard Vesterkamp. She is a composer and a sound recorder that's well known for her work in the field of acoustic ecology, which is essentially a field that is about recording the sounds of the world, both human and natural. This is from an album Into India, and I believe these are sounds of recordings of ceremonial bells and other metal bell objects somewhere in India, and she's worked with these sounds and altered and changed them digitally to create this sort of collage of bell sounds.
We're interested in things that people need, and
Number 8 is by Robert Ashley. The music is called The Wolf Man. And I believe what's happening here is there are radios playing into a room that has them playing back in the speakers and a microphone that's turned up very loud. And the sounds from the speakers of the radios playing is feeding back into the microphones. And so if you know what feedback is, it's when sound being played through an output comes back into the input. So in this case, a speaker going into the mic, and feedback can get very loud. And so this example is the composer has his mouth next to the microphone, and he's moving his mouth to sort of control the feedback as we hear these noisy radio sounds. So number 9 is by Jim O'Rourke, and it's called I'm Singing. So we heard some sort of typing or clock sounds, and we then hear some electronic and bell-like sounds that happen very quickly and repetitively, but in a kind of smearing of very fast rhythms.
Education, how well the difference between the two. Which do you label yourself? Look at the draw, master plan without flaw. Something lasting long leaves a compromising position. Everything that isn't becomes questionable, unbelievable, and becomes weak at some point.
So that was Outcast, which is an interlude track on the Speakerbox album. It's track number 35. When thinking about this question of what would qualify as music, one of the first things that came to my mind is tracks on albums that are meant to be a part of the larger journey of the album or of the musical experience, but are in a way sort of a break from the music. So I could see the answers going either way as to whether this is music. There's some synthesizer, repetitive, iterative synthesizer that happens behind this poetry. It feels like poetry with musical sounds in the background. I'd be quite curious to see if you all feel that it is music as well. So I hope you had fun listening to these. Thanks for sticking with me. Were there any that struck you as being musical and yet they didn't fit within your definition? Or did you answer that any of them are not music, but you would consider them something else, like poetry in the last example, or sound art? That's certainly possible as well. And that wraps up our first lesson here. I hope you enjoyed those examples. Next time, we're also going to be listening to a smattering of examples. But in next lesson, we're going to be focusing on the specific elements of music and thus introducing all of our modules. Next time, the lesson is called Changes, and the question is, as we go from one section to another in music, what do we hear changing? Do we hear a change of rhythm or harmony or melody? And we'll be getting into what those terms mean and how they lay out the format of the class. See you there.